a word for us this morning. Everybody welcome Miss Joni.
As well, and I told the Lord that if he opened the door and gave me a signal that I'd share. And last night I was reading, and I wasn't reading my Bible. I was reading a research book. And I wasn't reading Finale. Sorry. I read it. It's very good. I would recommend it highly. I actually reread part of The Cross this week, and that's amazing. I will have to say that's one of the best of the trilogies. But you can be seated. But I want to share with you, and I was praying, I do on Saturdays and weekends, and what's the congregation feeling? What's our church family? My back on my shirt says family. It's actually from Lilo and Stitch, but it's a Disney movie. But I guess I don't know what that other word is, Ohana, but it means family, so I decided I'd wear it because we're a family. And families stay together and stand together and share together and fight together. And I walked in and saw my sister and my mom. I don't know if my dad's over there, and laughed this week looking at a photo. I was looking at photos, and we call ourselves the Mafia. And there's this photo of us, and we were all at somebody's graduation. We all had on dark suits and dark clothes. It was outside, and we had on dark sunglasses, and we looked all dark hair. We just looked like the Mafia. And we started calling ourselves the Mafia. So if one person or the family, like the Godfather, and you don't mess with the family. So you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. And I said, well, if I get a call from my sister or whatever, I said, well, it's time for the Mafia. So, but we stand together and fight together, and as my immediate family at our house, we did some fighting this weekend, and not like fighting, mad fighting, but fighting against the enemy fighting. And a few things. I could share for a long time about this past week, but Pastor has a message, and I don't want to get in the way of that because he's studied a long time. But I know that often we pray and believe for something, and it doesn't show up, sometimes for years. A healing, restoration in a family, salvation for a loved one, and we wait and we wait. And in that time, so often we miss all the many things God is doing to answer that prayer. And he's just not answering it the way we want it. It's not looking the way that we want it. It's not coming in the totality. And I was reading about Asperger's syndrome, as you know, and Austin was fine. I talked to him about my sharing this and was telling him about his miracle. And he is not, in doctor's terms, completely healed of that, still dealing with some of the issues of that diagnosis. But in the meantime, and that's what I always like to say, in the meantime, he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. But there's always an in the meantime But that doesn't mean he's any less God in the meantime. And I had made a comment to Pastor about mind blindness. And I got out one of my books where I write notes when I'm researching and about mind blindness. And I was telling Austin, do you know what a miracle it is that you don't have mind blindness? And it's very interesting because it's attributed to people with spectrum disorders and some other types of disorders as well. But when I read you the definition, you'll see that it's really attributed to a lot of people, and sadly, a lot of people in the church. And when we love God and love people, we have to get rid of this mind blindness. So I'm going to read you the definition, but my son has astounded professional after professional because he doesn't have this. And even if you'll remember, those of you that were here a few years ago when Ron Sanderson was here, whose book is out on autism, Guide for Families. If you have anyone on the spectrum, it's the best I've ever read. But he was here, and we were talking afterwards, and he said, I can't believe that. So I'm going to read you the definition of what it is. Grabbing them. I'll get LASIK one of these days. or healing, I don't know. So often attributed to AS or other disorders, but described as a social and empathetic deficit. The individual is incapable of putting himself in someone else's shoes and cannot conceptualize, understand, or predict knowledge, thoughts, beliefs, and emotions, feelings, desires, behaviors, actions, and intentions of another person. The important thing is they cannot empathize. They can't put themselves in someone else's shoes, understand the way they feel. Such an ability to develop a mental awareness of what is in the other minds of people is called theory of mind or mind blindness. Lacking this would lend to withdrawal from society because it's perceived in a frightening and confusing manner because people are so unpredictable. Neurotypicals, which is what we are called, and what I love whenever I go to an event where there are these brilliant, and they're very brilliant people with spectrum disorders, they call us NTs. Neurotypicals, it's like we're the ones with they're just an NT, like we're the ones with the disorders, because we don't have the abilities they have and the hyper focus to have a subject matter that they have such expertise in. But neurotypicals can make automatic interpretations of people, or they should be able to. So mind blindness is basically disability. And what happens in autism or spectrum disorders is that they don't have that automatic feeling when something sad happens. And it was described by Temple Grandin that when her aunt passed away, she knew, okay, I'm supposed to be sad, but I don't feel sad. But I'm going to remember every time I feel sad, I'm going to remember my aunt's funeral. So when something sad happens, I will just go back and at that time she said CD-ROM in my mind and flip back to that feeling of sadness and try to relate to it. And so it doesn't come automatically. But with Austin, it comes completely automatically. And if you know him, as Mr. Debbie and people that know him, his family, he's the sweetest, most empathetic, most intuitive young man and understand feelings that other people have more than I do. It is a quickening of his spirit, and he will come to me and put his arm around me and know that I haven't given off any signals, but he's picked something up, and it's a miracle. And Ron said that day, it's a miracle that he has this. I can't believe it, that he has empathy and he has compassion. That's impossible with this diagnosis. And so I'm sharing this to tell you, because maybe your answer isn't that total healing, but along the way and in the meantime, God's still at work. He's still doing something. Sometimes it's not our timeline, but God's time is always best, because we're learning along the way, we're growing along the way, we're discovering along the way. And if we got everything when we wanted it, we wouldn't appreciate anything. And we wouldn't appreciate all those blessings. And when I read that last night, I thanked God of all the many times from the time he was little. I've told the story I'll never forget, being so upset one night, and I laid down beside him in his little bunk bed. And he really wasn't even speaking, and I was upset about his diagnosis and all the therapy. But he'd been watching Gerber. It was a cartoon a long time ago, a little Christian cartoon character. And he started singing, "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus." And just started singing that because they had a little hymn. And we were talking yesterday about the power of music and how we can remember a song that we haven't heard for 20 years, but we can remember every single lyric, how powerful our praise and our worship is. And if the enemy can take that, all he wants is our ineffectiveness. And that's what I was telling my daughter. He doesn't care anything about your gifts, anything about your abilities, or anyone up here with giftings and abilities. He just wants your effectiveness. He doesn't care if you can sing or you can preach. He just cares if it makes a difference in somebody's life, if it breaks a chain, if it causes someone to repair a relationship or to forgive someone, to love someone, to love God and to love people. And what I want to encourage you today, and I just said, God, I just want to love on our people today, our family, and encourage them that waiting is okay, because waiting doesn't mean he's not working. And when we let patience have its perfect work, perfect is equated with love, and he's working love in us. When patience is having its perfect work, we are becoming more and more like him, because perfection is equal to love, and God is love. And that's what this is all about. And I framed a little something for Ashton and haven't given it to her yet. But it was just a little phrase from Emily Dickinson that said, "The sun rose." Do you know how the sun rises? A ribbon at a time. And that's the beauty of God. The beauty of God. A ribbon at a time. And so I just want to encourage you today that you are loved. God has not forgotten you. If you're walking home to a pile of bills, to an unsaved spouse, bratty teenagers, not that all teenagers are bratty, certainly mine weren't. They were just angels. That's the true 7 years of tribulation, 12 to 19. So I could say. But no matter what you're walking in, walking into, coming out of, the wait is worth it. Because He is still at work in the meantime. In the meantime. And that's the hardest time. But that's the time that we're growing. And we're growing and being perfected in His love. Not our love, His love. And that's the love that's going to make the difference. And when we're united as a family like we are, and we are united as a family, this church is united as a family. And if you're here for the first time, you're part of the family. We just adopt you in. You've found a home. You'll find a place. You'll find a purpose. You'll find an area where your gift can be used. Because just because this is not my gift, but no matter who you are, you've got one. God didn't just leave everybody out and just people that can sing and preach and play an instrument or do something else grand or visible. Doesn't mean you're not gifted. And some of the most wonderful, I was telling someone in California, some of the most wonderful people, I say it all the time, wonderful stories and testimonies of strength, endurance, faith, and exemplary godly character have not been from the people I've met behind the pulpits. And I've met some of the greats. But they have been the people that have been in the pews at World Harvest Church. And that's the family you can be a part of. And don't ever leave the family. Don't ever leave the family. Don't leave this covering. Don't walk away. Because you'll always have, I tell the kids that, you always have mom and dad here, and we're getting old enough that we can say that. You'll always have a light here. The light will always be on. You'll always be a part of a family here, and you will always be loved and always be welcome. And there will always be somebody to stand with you and fight with you in the meantime.